actually turn on my mic this time instead of just streaming with the mic off. So I'm going to go ahead and do another live real quick. And the reason I'm going to do another live, and unplanned, of course, because it's last minute, is I struggle a little bit with making videos, not only because the editing takes a while, but because I do so many other things. I don't always find the time to do putting my research together with evidence and then doing all the editing on the video itself. So a lot of the topics that I like to talk about are things that I'm very passionate about, but something I've been finding, which I've mentioned in other videos, is a lot of the sources of where I originally learned some of this stuff is just not good sources, or they're questionable. So I'm making the effort of taking things that I had heard before, read about or talked about, and trying to pick out, well, what's the origin of these? How do I know that they're trustworthy? How do I know that these sources are authentic, real, and trustworthy? And I'm finding that some of them aren't, and some of them are. A couple of them lead me down rabbit holes. And when I do make videos, I want to make sure that they're quality videos. Like, I'm really happy with the witchcraft one I did, even though I left off a lot of stuff. There's just so much stuff that you can talk about with any of the topics that come to spirituality. And the next video I want to do is kind of exploring the definition and meaning behind the word pagan, and as well as the word heathen. So I've got these two videos that I've done in the past, which kind of cover both of those topics, but I wanted to pull them in together into one. And specifically, I wanted to do this because I constantly try to do videos aimed at individuals who are new and who are seeking. And the reason I do that is not because I don't think people who have been studying for a while need any sort of help. And it's not that I can't provide additional information and resources for those individuals. But I find that individuals that are already on a path tend to fall into two broad type of categories. The first category is individuals that are sure what they're doing is right and they don't need any help and they reject help. Not everyone, but there are a lot of people like that. Then the other group of people are individuals who are in their path and they're wanting to look, but they want to figure it out and discover it for themselves. So they've gone on their path long enough that they're confident that they don't need assistance from the outside. So that's why I tend to try to gear my videos towards individuals who are brand new and seeking. Because once you've already started along your path, either you're happy with your path because you're finding what you're looking for and you're not looking for something else, or you're so focused on your path you don't think anything else is wrong or right, and it's just, this is, I meant to say right, you don't think anything else is right, and you don't want any outside influences bursting your little bubble. So even though I think that my videos can be consumed by anyone regardless of how long they've been practicing for, I do try to gear it towards those who are brand new, because I feel like building a base foundation when you're exploring your path can be very helpful. You will find that if you've studied, practiced, whatever, however you want to word it, if you've walked your journey through the mysteries, through the non-traditional faiths that are out there, you'll start to realize a lot of this stuff yourself. Like, maybe I wasn't right. Maybe the authors I read were wrong or full of it. Maybe the people I listened to didn't really know what they're talking about, or maybe they're just giving me their own interpretation. So maybe I should figure things out for myself. There's a turning point when people are kind of digging in to where they either veer off and say, you know what, I tried to walk down this alternative path. It's not for me. It's not working. And they leave it. Or you have your individuals who go further down that rabbit hole in one of the two ways, the preachy, self-righteous jerks, and then the individuals that are just like, I really don't know anything. Let's rediscover this. I think the same thing can be said for any spiritual path. That's a big topic, a big commonality amongst many of my videos, is all religions are the same. They're all made up fantasies and mythologies where people are trying to understand and interpret something that they can never possibly understand. And doing this effort of researching and exploring and using sacred text is what they have to go off with, and either believe it or you don't. But every single religion, and I put them all on the same plane. I don't feel like just because I myself, I'm spiritual, I'm not religious. when I was more religious oriented and I was going towards a lot of the alternative faiths, that would fall under the large umbrella term of paganism. I just noticed that no one had the answers. I realized this was the same stuff with different labels. I mean, whether you're talking about Christianity and their arguments over how they view God, what God's capable of, what is God a name, is God a being, is God this, is God that, what is the whole purpose of life? Every single spirituality religion is doing that. All these new age paths are doing the same thing. They're looking towards this greater divinity that they've connected with, and they're trying to find a way to interpret it. You know, why do I exist? Was it multiple gods and goddesses? Are they conscious? Are they beings? Are they with us? Are they within us? Are they outside of us? And all these different interpretations. And I think that's consistent across all spirituality. People are trying to learn or to connect with something they just don't know. And then you have to trust your feelings. It becomes what feels right. And that's to say nothing if you start getting down the idea that we can manifest our own lives or influence the world around us through our will, which is in the realm of magic. Now, some people don't like to use the word magic. Some people prefer the word energy. And a lot of these individuals and practitioners in the ancient days, the little remnants that we know, people who explored these paths have turned into a lot of modern sciences and stuff like that. So we've had this evolution. So then comes the question with the modern individual. A lot of people are turning away from spirituality on a whole. And when they do, it's because they say everything's covered in science. Why do we need to believe in this mythical fairy tale BS? Because we have factual science. But then science, it's only true and factual until it's proven wrong. So there's this back and forth, and there's this constant changing. So I'm going through trying to make these videos to help individuals who are seeking to, take an in-depth look. Don't just repeat things because everybody's saying it. Realize that when you're reading these sacred texts that are supposed to guide you, it's one person's interpretation. And again, this applies for anything. Okay, so you hear everyone say as above, so below. Where does that come from? Why is everyone saying it? And even if you find the origin, people have adapted it and twisted it and changed it. Twist is probably a really negative term or way of phrasing it. People have adapted and adopted concepts and theories, and it's not like it's just within one thing, it's in multiple things. Or if you hear people say all energy follows thought, or if people say a god or gods or goddess or spirit created us, or the Big Bang, like there's all these different theories, but we weren't there. We don't know. We are trusting the words of others to tell us what to believe and how to believe. And I think that does us a disservice. So when I dig into this video, whenever I get it done, I'm still taking notes, and I keep stopping because I do audiobook recordings and I play video games. I play video games all the time. So I work full time. I go to martial arts classes. I play video games. I record audiobooks. I'm busy. And when I do read and research stuff, it's when I have time. Right now, my major study is trying to get more fluent in Icelandic. And I don't even get to do that every week. So when I come back to making videos for this channel, I've had a lot of feedback from people where they said they would prefer to see more spiritual things in this channel versus me talking about martial arts or talking about video games. So I created a separate video game channel. I haven't created one for martial arts. I don't know if I'm going to, just because, and people who've followed me for a while have heard little bits and pieces of this. Basically, a lot of people online are kind of jerks. If they get on to talk about martial arts, it's to yell at other people. It's like no one just wants to have the passion and joy of just doing martial arts. It's like, and you come from a different background. What style's better? All this stuff. What's effective? What's not effective? What are the effective elements? And they get in all these debates. It's like, why can't we just all love martial arts and share ideas? Why did it have to be this elitist hierarchy BS? So I haven't done a lot with that lately as far as online goes. But trying to separate the games out from spirituality, focusing on the spirituality stuff, I don't want to just produce videos that are just videos for the sake of videos. And that's the way some of these lives have become, which is why I'm vlogging right now. I'm saying, this is what I'm attempting to do. I haven't disappeared. I've just been busy. But I feel like going back to basics, going back to what paganism is. So as far as I know, I have this generalized concept of you have all of these different tribal humans all around the world and their little clans and stuff that have tried to touch in and tap into stuff. And as society started to form, you started getting more information share. You have big cities, you have trade routes, you have roads. So ideas would travel through trading, because if you have a localized group that hunts, farms, and gathers in one localized area, that group is going to develop their own interpretation of what existence is, what the gods are, what divinity is. And then once you start trading, now you're sharing ideas as well as goods. So handcrafts, things that you make and produce that your neighbors or faraway individuals from different tribes and clans might want to share with you. And then it goes outside of your country and it gets far. So ship routes and trade routes. That's what I think started to condense this idea of a universal belief or religion or spirituality. So the way that each of these cultures, the way I understand it, each of these different cultures, it was deeply ingrained and rooted in the actual culture itself. Spirituality was fused in just like everything else in daily life. That's the way I understand it. So when you have these big cities happening and Christianity was starting to spread, it spread along the main routes. So the cities would get it first. So your people living out in the sticks, people that are still like on farms and not in part of the main hustle and bustle of the city getting all the latest and greatest news, they're practicing their older ancient traditions. That's where we have places like, I believe, like in the Roman area, which is now Italy, that we had words like paganus or paganus. I don't speak Latin. Country dweller, ruralistic, living out in the sticks, because those were the individuals that weren't getting the access that all the big city folks were to this new age Christianity thing, this new religion. It's the new latest greatest hotness, and we're all going to do it because the emperor says so. So all of these people out in the sticks, they would insultingly say, "Oh, the pagans, the people living out in the country, they're calling them rednecks. You hillbillies. You're not as educated as us in the cities. You're not Christian because you don't know any better. You're doing your pagan practices, your country practices, your folk traditions." That's the way I understand the term pagan originally meaning and being used. And of course it was weaponized. People who were not out in the sticks, living in these areas, a lot of the city folks would use it insultingly. And then once you started to push the idea of Christianity, now you all have to believe it, they pushed the ideas, and now it was not only an insult to be called pagan, it was also now pagans are the enemy. So that's the way I believe it is involved into how we use it today. So then it became this signature thing today. A pagan is kind of used for saying you're not part of the Abrahamic religion or major paths or major spiritualities. You're pagan. You're this unique country dweller. I mean, in America, I don't even know, but as far as I know, saying hillbilly is probably the closest thing you'll have to the term pagan in Latin. But then you have heathen. That's why I was going to put them both in the next video. Heathen basically means someone of the hearth, which is like land, open land. It's just there's a different word for the Nordic Scandinavian languages. I believe it was heathen was the name, and heathen translates into heathen, which is again people of the hearth, people of this land. They live out in the sticks. They're not part of the major cities where the trade routes were happening. And then the idea behind Christianity, as far as I know, was a system of control. Now, Christians might take offense to that, but we got to look at the origins of where it came from, not what it is today. And I think what it is today, we need to analyze the individual who practices it, what they're practicing it for, and their group that they're practicing it from. You do have Christian groups who are very positive, very nice, great people, very accepting, very open, and they spread the message of love and acceptance. Then you have other ones who are kind of zealot mindset that we're the only ones right and everyone else is evil. So it depends. You have to take the individual as the individual and not try to lump them all together. And a lot of people try to do that. They take one word and they try to lump it all together, which is a problem with all these new age pagan groups because they're all different and they're doing it different ways. So it's like, well, then what's pagan? That's why I want to break it down. But then, like I said, so heathen, and paganus, paganus, which now pagan, these are country dwellers. These are people with their folk traditions. And they were doing things their own way. So if you want to get a unified system of control, to get people unified and stuck together instead of out in their own little clans or in their own little worlds or little villages, and get them unified, you have to have a structural, unified, singular way to believe. And if people passionately believe that there is this damnation for bad and elevation for good, that you have to do a certain way, it enforces and infuses morals through the fear of the unknown. That's why I'm saying Christianity started as a system of control, even though I think it's evolved into something different today. So, with that all being said, of my general understanding of what pagan and heathen is, that's high level. I've read other stuff too that kind of expands upon that. But right now I'm trying to deep dive and see, is my original understanding accurate? Where did the term pagan come from? Let's look at etymology. Let's look at different books written on it. When was it first written? So I started taking notes, because I like to take notes. Now I have a OneNote, and I keep putting my notes in my OneNote. It's loading. That's why we got the backlighting going on. So I've got this section, calling it quick notes here. So then I was trying to research, saying where did this stuff first come from? So what's one of the oldest writings using the term that we say through etymology? Go to etymology.com, even if it's not accurate. What's the term pagan? From Paganos or Paganus, whatever. So Paganus, when was it first used? Apparently I found a reference to the City of God by St. Augustine. So Augustine of Hippo, 426 CE was when this was written. So that's a pretty old reference there. And I want to read what he said. So apparently, and I'm not going to read the Latin, I'm going to read the translation as it's been provided. Nor do these deserve to be called pagans who live in the country, but those are so styled who desert the worship of the true God, to whom the sacred buildings, rites, and sacrifices belong, and adopt noxious rites and sacrifices of their own. Paganus means rustic, whence we call those who live in the country pagans. So seeing stuff like this, people like to put this mystique and this mysterious stuff. Tara, I'll get to your comment in a second. Welcome. Good to see you. People like to just say, oh, we have this secret, super special magic passed by word of mouth, underground and hiding of all these words and secret terms and practices. It's but if you can't authenticate where they came from, how do you know they're trustworthy? It literally takes a single generation, one person, through the chain of word of mouth. The very last person speaking it has to be trusted. And you have no way to authenticate if where they got it from was trustworthy. That's why I'm trying to reach out and find this stuff to at least confirm or deny. Tara White says, even though to aim the newer to the path, it is always refreshing and even reminders and pointers for us older in the path. I can agree with that, and I hope that's the case. I hope it helps. I really do. Like I said, I talk about this stuff because I'm passionate about it. I like history. I like research. I like reading. I like language, and I like discovering cultures, especially ones that are relevant to my ancestry. But I like them, period. I love some of the ancient Chinese teachings and philosophies, because when I was growing up, I had heroes like Bruce Lee, Wong Fei Hung, Huo Yunjie is really cool too. There's a lot of really cool figures from the past, and I'm just oh, cool, I want to research and know more about, but I'm not connected to. But then there's also stuff like Scandinavian and Irish traditions, because again, with my mom being born in Iceland, it's that's a direct connection for me. So now I'm discovering history, but it's also personal history. It's part of what my ancestors might have done or believed in, and that to me is exciting, and I want to share it. I want to share it with others. I want to talk about it. So I'm going to keep making videos even if people don't watch them, but when they do, and when we have folks like you, Tara, who interact, it's always helpful, because it's nice. It's nice to share your passions versus just talking to a camera and a microphone and hearing yourself speak only. I also have this other source here that I found on one of the older uses of the term Paganus. This one here is Cyprian of Carthage, 200 to 258 CE. Cyprian, a bishop and martyr in the early Christian church, also used the term Pagani in his writings. In his Epistle 58, also known as On the Lapsed, wow, I'm butchering some of these words, written around 250, Cyprian addresses the issue of Christians who had lapsed from their faith under the persecution and urges them to repent and return to the Christian community. Then there's Lactantius, Lactantius, 240 to 320 CE, an early Christian author and apologist, used the term paganus in his writings to describe non-Christians and to criticize their religious beliefs. In his work, Divine Institutes, written around 310 CE, Lactantius argues for the truth of Christianity and the falsehood of pagan religions. So we have, like, you know, it's 2024, and we have stuff all the way back from the 200s, 200 CE Common Era, for those not familiar. So it's like we see sources of this. We know where it has come from. We see reaffirmation of basically being non-Christian, which is how a lot of people use it in the modern era. So anyway, that's my big undertaking, is to complete a video on that with some cool clip art, some references to books, maybe show some neat imagery. I might use some AI generated art again, like I did in the witchcraft video I did. I don't know. I just like learning and sharing. And that's my goal and purpose here. So that's my little vlog for today. Is I'm in the process of gathering resources. And now, how do you gather resources? And this is questionable. So as you all know, I have a wall, and if you've not seen it on my YouTube, go check out my YouTube videos. I have a wall of books, some good, some bad. A lot of them are Llewellyn books, not all of them. Some of them are by professors, some of them are by doctors. Professor Ronald Hutton, I've got a couple of his books, Dr. Jackson Crawford, and I've got a lot of people who are occult authors, and I'm trying to find some of the sources for a lot of that stuff too, and I'm just adding to my collection. That's part of it. But then I also look online for research papers. You know, I look for universities. I look at stuff like etymology.com. I try to hunt down and say, what is the origin of? And I like using stuff like DuckDuckGo versus Google, because Google has a tendency to show you based upon what your usual results are. So it kind of gives you a biased response for things that you look for. And then, like I said, then I look up the person, like, how can I trust them? Like, I've seen books on Amazon. I'm like, oh, it's kind of a cool book. So one of the things I've been trying to get into reading and researching is some of the folk traditions, like some of the people of Appalachia in America. Because a lot of the folk traditions, I'm thinking, again, people keep their traditions alive. I've mentioned this in other videos before. They're not going to give it up. Your family teaches you a certain way. You have a cultural tradition. You keep practicing it. So people who came over from, like, thank you, Fang. I love it when you pop open my freaking green screen. Stop it, kiddo. Okay, sorry. As we put cracks in the wall of reality. Hey, I'm green screening, all right? Somebody gave me that feedback too. Well, if you have a green screen, why don't you use it? There you go. We got a nature picture I took while outside. Where was I before I got distracted with Fang coming up to say hi? Everyone want to see Fang? Come here, Fang. You want to be on camera? Come here, baby. I know, old man. You're getting old, huh? This is Mr. Fang Fang. So he's, what, you 16 or 17 now? I have to ask Mama. She knows better, huh? But he's my little buddy. But he wanted to come up and say hi. Anyway, distraction. Where was I? Books, authors, sources. I was saying something about sources and books, but kitty distraction. He's gonna purr in the microphone now. Okay, and let me try to remember where I was as he claws my shirt and wants to be center of the world, center of attention. Yeah, people don't give up their traditions. Appalachia people. And in the Appalachian regions, you do have a lot of people with Irish heritage. Being someone on my dad's side, my dad's dad, Irish and German, there's some connection there. So I want to research some of it because I think a lot of the Appalachian folk traditions are going to be very close, or at least inspired by some of the older Irish/Celtic practices. People like to say Celtic like it's a tribe. As far as I know, the term Celtic refers to a language group, and there's a lot of different Celtic languages. So there was many Celtic tribes that were all over regions that were today as Ireland, Britain, and France. And back then I think it was Gaul, and I don't know what the old ancient Irish were called, honestly. I know there's a lot of different terms that they had, but it's like, I think a lot of those different groups had Celtic speaking language, so they were all technically Celtic in nature, but people use Celtic to kind of signify this idea of modern druids. So I have an interest there because, again, heritage-wise. So I want to look at some of these folk traditions. My dad had a book, and when we were going through his estate, I kept this one. It's American Folklore and Legends, which is cool. I want to get to reading at some point. But it looks like a lot of the people in Appalachia, even though they believe in God, and they use the term God, and they seem to be mostly Christian for the most part, their spirituality appears, from someone looking in from the outside, an interpretation of observations and the few people that I'm plucking out of the group to listen to, they seem to have a connection with Earth, and they view God through nature itself, and they have a lot of natural home remedies and ways of respecting life and being part of life, living out there in the woods. That's appealing to me, so I want to do some more research into that at some point in the future. I found a book on Amazon. One person was talking about it. I'm like, this sounds like a great book, and in theory it sounds great. So then I researched the author, and I found out what their history was and what they've done before, and they're not someone of a scholarly renown. They only have a handful of books, and they seem to have jumped around between writing about Wicca and folk traditions, and it's like, so you're going to see that blend probably there. So that's why I'm saying, like, research and find out who these authors are, which is why I always do my best to represent in any of my lives or videos that I make. I'm just I wouldn't even call myself a lay scholar. I'm just the person who likes this stuff. That's it. I wasn't raised with any great spiritual tradition. In fact, when I was a kid, they brought me to a Roman Catholic church, me and my brothers, because my father was raised Roman Catholic. But I had a very open household. My mom used to take me to psychic conventions, and there was certain things we did in the family that we just don't put a label on or a name on, certain traditions, like using certain herbs for natural remedies, or using crystals or whatnot, or listening to your dreams, things like there was different things that we had custom-wise in the family that we didn't necessarily label. And for the most part, on my mom's side, a lot of them grew up going to a particular church, but when they got older, they didn't. And most of them don't seem to anymore. There's a couple that do, but they just kind of did their own thing. And finding out about that kind of stuff, I was kind of inspired to open my own mind. So what's different? What did we keep? Why did we keep it? Why didn't we keep it? And who makes these people right? And then I'm like looking into a lot of this stuff. I've been trying to take a look at some of the Bibles and stuff. And I'm like, okay, so why do the Christians believe in this? And then I'm like, why does everyone talk about King James's Bible? So part of my research, apparently, King James, in England, they didn't have an English Bible. Everyone had to, Latin or Aramaic or Hebrew or whatever. I think Hebrew, most of them were in Hebrew. But we've had Bibles translated to Latin as well. So I think the original Bibles were Hebrew with a little Aramaic, if I'm not mistaken, based upon research that I did. I don't know what the sources are because I don't have them readily at hand, but I was taking some notes on this. And from what I remember reading, online, through online research, it would appear that the Bible is mostly Hebrew. So King James wanted to have, for the Church of England, an English Bible. And there was a whole bunch of different versions that were translated into English, but they all said something slightly different. So what King James did is he hired this biblical scholar to translate it and write the official Bible for the Church of England. This official translation by this scholar is called King James's Bible, which is why so many people reference it, because from an English perspective, it was the translation, because it was the unifying translation. I never knew that. That's cool. Now, I don't necessarily agree with it, but that's still cool. Like, there's this, here's some of my notes. So going back to my OneNote, and this is now off topic for my next video. This is just, what have I been doing with my time? So I've been looking through the Bible, and I've been trying to look through different quotes and trying to understand them, and apparently everybody argues over them. And there's this huge section about witches. Guess what? There's no word witch in the Bible at all, but people translate it to word witch, which is part of those arguments I've had in other videos where the term witch now means nothing. Here we go. So in the American Standard Version, Exodus 22:18, it says, "Thou shalt not suffer a sorceress to live." But in the King James's Version, they say, "Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live." So which is it? Apparently in the original Hebrew, the word was mekhashefa, which they translate into sorcerer or witch. So it depends on which version. So translation, again, you lose meaning. You have a different cultural practice, but it's looked at as bad. Sword Sister, good to see you. Welcome. Jay Woodwolf, good to see you. Oh, hey there. I consider myself lucky whenever I catch one of these. Thank you. I appreciate that. Hi, friend. Good to see you. Good to see you. So I was just giving a little update. I haven't done a video in a while. If you want to go back and watch this live later, I talk about some of the stuff that I've been doing research-wise. Right now, I'm actually talking about some biblical translations because, again, finding where this stuff comes from and seeing how things get interpreted and translated is fascinating. So at some point, I may very well do a video on the Bible in the future, but I have a feeling when it comes to biblical study, there are a lot more educated scholars out there on the Bible versus looking at some of the pagan, New Age, heathen type paths. I feel like there's less scholarly individuals. That's why I like to reference Professor Ronald Hutton so much, or Dr. Jackson Crawford, because it's like there's so few. It's slim pickings. But Bible, it depends on the denomination you want to go with and what version of the Bible you want to go to. So it's interesting. It's very interesting, though. But my main point of bringing that up, like I said, is that's something I had stumbled across. So looking at different folk traditions and customs that people have, or even the way the Bible is interpreted. Like again, being born of someone who is an Icelander. My mom was born in Iceland, was not raised in Iceland, but my grandma, 100% Icelandic. She's in her 90s now, still has a thick Icelandic accent to this day. She grew up in that culture. And that influenced us with our raising. So I look up videos, and I look up videos on YouTube where people are talking to people in Iceland and doing interviews. And one of the things that this one interview that stood out to me recently was, what is Jesus to you? Who's Jesus? And there was Icelanders in that video. And then again, individual interpretation. So we're talking about a country, a very small country, a couple 100,000 people? Like not even that many. Like I think we have states in the United States that have more people than are living in Iceland. And in this interview, they're asking, who's Jesus? And a lot of them said he's a spirit, or he is a force of nature, or all this. Like a lot of the ways of the interpretation of Jesus seem to be very much ingrained with the cultural tradition in Iceland of viewing nature spirits, or what we might refer to as wights, W-I-G-H-T, nature spirits and entities. And sometimes you have like the huldufólk with the hidden people and things like that. So there's this view, and they kind of take that and blend it in. I even saw this one interview once where this lady was trying to describe the huldufólk, the hidden people, as basically tying it into Christianity, because God came down to Adam and Eve and half their children were all dirty and not looking nice, even though they told them prepare, God's coming down, and they didn't. So they had them hide because they were ashamed of them not cleaning themselves up for God's visit. So God's like, well, if you're going to hide them from my eyes now, then they'll be hidden from everyone's eyes. I was like, that's an interesting interpretation. You don't hear that in most churches. And there's one big church in Iceland, which is the Lutheran church. But the way Lutheranism and Christianity is practiced in Iceland is clearly different than other parts of the world. So there's this interpretation from different regions. Look at each different church or state or denomination. People practice differently, but you're going to still see infused folk customs and folk traditions, which I find extremely fascinating. So that's definitely something of main interest. Would you stop hitting my freaking green screen, kiddo? Jeez. No. You're knocking my green screen walking around. Yeah. Kitty cat. Yeah. This green screen is freely spinning. It's like a single pole with a pole across the top, and it swivels. And it's just hanging. So, yeah, I'm going to call him Kitten. He's like 16, 17 now. He's my old man. If you didn't see him earlier. Come here, baby. Oh, I know. You can't jump up because you're getting old. Here's Fang Fang. He's my baby boy. Maybe he's purring in the microphone again. So yes, my kitten, my oversized, whiny kitten. So every morning he cries like this. I'll hold him and pet him. He jumps down. He goes back to crying. I pet him a little bit more, then he goes and lays down. And he does it like 4 or 5 times throughout the day. So he heard me talking. He's adorable. He comes when I call him. If I say his name and have him come, and he comes meowing, he follows me outside, walks through the yard with the dogs, comes back in. He's a great cat. I love him to death. He's getting stinky and he's getting old, but he had stomatitis, which is like an infection in the gums, and we took him to the vet, and they actually removed all of his teeth, but they left his fangs, and his name is Fang, so that was kind of cool. He also had a mutation when he was born. He had double fangs on the top on both sides, so instead of one big fang, he had 2 side by side on both sides. So I actually wanted to name him Feng, which is Chinese for wind, but my wife said that's too hard to pronounce, and so we just went with Fang. So I call him Fang Fang sometimes, or when I call him, I'll say Fang Fang Fang, like that. No, he's a sweet boy. But yeah, he wants snuggle time. He's like, oh, Daddy's awake. Daddy's talking. He's got to snuggle me now. Huh? See, I got you a snuggle you. And he'll just sit here and purr, putting his claws on me. He's happy now, though. He's being held. But he's distracting because, you start petting a cat and you lose track of what you're talking about. Yeah, now you're going to jump down because that's what you do. You're like, I come up for a snuggle, get hair all over you, and then I jump down, and you're going to meow again, aren't you? Yeah, he's sitting and waiting for more pets. There he goes. Anyway, on that note. So yeah, that's what I've been up to lately. Research, study, and I don't like to say when I do my videos, I have a tendency to try to break out the ums and the I like to pause. It's a filler noise that people do when they're thinking, and I prefer to just pause or wait for a second instead of just filling the space with but I do that. Everybody does it. I've tried to train myself out of it. It's hard. I don't remember what class it was. I think there's some sort of a speech class where people recommended taking out noises like that because it's not only distracting or off-putting, but it gives the impression of like not knowing. It's not a very good presentation for public speaking. You don't want to do ums and uhs during public speeches. So, something to work on. Apparently, I've broken all the work I've done on that. So, anyway, that's pretty much what I had for today. So, unless there's additional comments or theories, I'm probably gonna stop the live here. And at some point in the future, I will let loose that Pagan and Heathen video. Now, I'm almost done with the audiobook I'm working on. I have another, I think I'm on 184 and there's 199 chapters. So I think I should be able to finish that in the next couple of months. And then when I'm not doing that anymore, slightly off topic, but no, by all means, like I said, I've pretty much covered everything I was going to cover. So at this point, it's free, open conversation. So if there's questions, I like to open the floor towards the end of my lives, as long as I keep them under an hour. I don't think anyone's going to sit for an hour live, but by all means, let's hear it. I noticed you did some voice work for New Vegas mods for Some Guy 2000. Sounds familiar. I've done a lot of voice work over the years. Don't know if I remember that mod off the top of my head, though. So I like talking. I like hearing myself speak. And I like to do character voices. Now, interestingly enough, off-topic personal stuff, right? My grandfather, my mom's dad, he used to watch us a lot. My parents got separated when I was young, and while my mom was working, my grandfather would watch us a lot. And we were very close to my grandfather, and he used to read us stories. And when he read us stories, he would always do voices. Not like voices like I do now, but he would change the tone and the pacing and, deepen his voice for certain parts and loud. And he would do sound effects and all sorts of things. He got us in the stories by making it very fun to listen to. And then I grew up with actors like Robin Williams and Jim Carrey, which had a lot of inspiration on me for how I do some of my humor and voices. So I really like that. I also love reading, and I got into audiobooks, and I'm like, that's cool. So eventually I was just like, I want to do that one day. So now I do. So I, as a hobby, was doing voiceover work, and I was doing voiceover work for machinima, like basically computer animated videos. And there was like different games like the Movies Underground. And the Movies Underground, the movies video game had the Movies Underground community. I did a lot of voices for that. And I did a handful for some of the stuff, like some of the mods that I saw that people were making, and I would audition for different things. And then I started getting into actual audiobooks. So I'm actually on Amazon. You can actually purchase books. Well, right now there's one. I have one book I did on Amazon that you can purchase now. And if anybody is interested, I do have promo codes, but I guess in the future I might run out if a lot of people ask for them. But if you want a free audiobook that I actually did, it's a sci-fi fiction book. If you think like Starship Troopers or StarCraft video game, the movie, or the movie Starship Troopers or StarCraft video games, it's that kind of a feel to it. Really good, like sci-fi war fantasy type of deal. It's really cool. It's futuristic. You have these things called Wargons, which are like these giant bear-like, cat-like creatures that are wearing metal armor, and it has a rider that sits on top of them in the metal armor, and then they plug into each other so they can communicate with their minds and thinking, so they work as a single fused unit. And it follows one of these cavalrymen through his exploration of trying to get this specialized metal, which is almost indestructible, just to make them more powerful as they're fighting these giant insect aliens that they're going back and forth and having this war between the Federations and these bugs. So it's really interesting. It was a lot of fun to do. And then I'm working on one right now, which is more of like a medieval fantasy type of a book. It's got like elves and vampires and humans, and it has all these different nations, so I had to do different accents. I just like doing that kind of stuff. A traditional storyteller then, like a bard. Yes, absolutely. That's cool. I agree. And I think that's one thing that I thought was appealing, is looking into some of the Druid research that I've done. We don't have a lot of what the ancient Druids used to do. We have some writings that are secondhand accounts. I've done this in videos before, of course, because it's very popular and something I'm into. But they had apparently 3 grades: bards, ovates, and druids. But they were all part of those societies dealing with kind of the Irish Celtic type stuff. And I have notes here if you're interested. I've also have a video on some of them talking about the different grades and how we have proof of it, including ancient writings dealing with some of this stuff. But there's one lady, let me see if I can find the video really quick, just in case you're interested. But basically, here it is. This is the one I'm looking for. It's a BBC episode. If you want to check that out. But they're talking about hey, welcome back, Dusty Dead. It's good to see you. But they're talking about like the 3 different bards, ovates, and druids, and basically the power of word. So apparently the druids used to memorize stuff and pass by word of mouth, and you would have to recite it from memorization. And some of them would travel and tell stories. Those are the bards that we talk about. So apparently that's part of some of my ancestors' cultures. So keeping that alive today just makes me smile. And stories have always been important in many cultures, right? I mean, stories entertain and they teach lessons. And the idea of being able to continue that to a certain degree is fun. That, and I just like doing voices, even though my accents are atrocious. From a audiobook perspective, I find them enjoyable. Hello, it's been a while. Glad you're back. Yeah, I hadn't done a live in a while, and I wanted to do a live because my next planned video, I'm still doing research on. It's been like 2 or 3 weeks. And I talked about it a little bit at the beginning of this video, but so definitely rewatch this live after if you missed the first half. But basically, I want to do a video on what the meaning of the word pagan was, and is now, and the term heathen, because a lot of people, I'm hearing a lot of individuals refer to themselves as Norse pagan. It's not wrong to do that, but it's mixing of cultures. Norse specifically refers to Norwegian people from Norway. But it has been also used later after the fact to refer to the Scandinavian area. So when people say Norse, they usually talking about the Viking Age Scandinavians. The term pagan comes from a Latin term, pagani, paganus, paganus. Not sure how to pronounce them. There's two different words, pagani and paganos. And there's a word in Scandinavia, heathen, which we now say today translated as heathen. And they basically mean the same thing. So I'm not sure why people prefer to use Norse paganism versus just saying heathen. Don't even need to say Norse heathenry, just heathen itself, because it comes from a Scandinavian term. But I think it would be interesting to explore. So I've been looking up like when it was first used. What writings do we have that references the use of the term pagan? And I have found writings back from 200 CE, and I want to talk about some of those and talk about how it evolved and adapted throughout the era. But until I get done with that video, I figured I'd pop a live up, just to let you all know I'm still alive, because I do have individuals, actually everyone here has been here regularly. Sword Sister, the Dusty Dud, Jay, Tara, all of you, and there's more. People have been here regularly. You're supporting my channel by watching and interacting. I don't want to leave y'all hanging, because I have a passion for talking about this, and you seem to enjoy hearing me talk about it. So, yeah, I'm here. I'm still alive. Yeah, this one. I think I know this one. Storytelling is one hell of a skill. Not as easy as one would assume it to be. Right? I agree with that. Isn't it a bit odd to call Nordic paganism heathenism? I keep hearing that the term makes little sense. I thought heathen had a very negative meaning attached to it. And then Alum, hello, welcome to the live. Sword Sister, that right there is exactly why I want to do a video on it. Yes, the term heathen has a negative wrapped around it, but so does the term pagan. The term pagan, when it was originally used, as I'll share with some of the sources that I found, it was used in a very negative light. Being called a pagan was like being called an evil devil worshiper. It's a horrible term. It was a bad thing. But looking at the interpretations, like I said, check out the beginning of this video. I won't repeat everything from the beginning of this video now, because I'll cover that in my other video, and then of course you can see it here. But at a high level, the term paganus, paganus, and pagani in Latin referred to ruralistic, someone living out in the sticks. In Scandinavia, we have the term heathen, which refers to someone from the hearth, which is like, or the heath, someone from the heath, which is like out in the woods, out in the land. So someone from the land, someone from the land. It refers to someone who lives out in ruralistic areas. But again, in Scandinavia, we have an actual term for that region. So to me personally, and it's personal choice, I like to use the term heathen to refer to Scandinavian practices. Pagan is like almost mirrors to a degree. It almost mirrors in a different language, in a different region. So that's why I'm like, I don't know. But then you have some middle ground stuff, like what about the Slavic stuff? A lot of people call it Slavic paganism. And that's kind of south of the Germanic tribes and to the east of some of the areas that I might refer to as pagan. So I don't know. I don't think there's a single best answer. In fact, I have a list for you with different stuff like Fjornseath. Let's see, there's, I covered this one of my videos. I want to break this out at some point. So here's all the terms that I've heard used for Scandinavian revival stuff. It's very popular right now because of the Viking TV show. It really just boomed. After the Viking TV show came out, everyone was calling themselves a Norse, okay. A lot more people were saying they were Norse pagan. Ausatru, someone who follows that would be an Ausatruerman. This is specifically the Icelandic revival construction one. A Satru, this is the American version. Now, the individual who came up with it in America will claim that they invented the term. They didn't. And they also claim that, what was his name? Stephen McNullen is the one who first used the term Asatru in America. And he said, oh, that's what it used to be called back in the day. No, it's a new term. He had to have gotten it from Iceland because it's a modern term. Odinism, Vanatru, which is, so Aus, the Auses, the Aesir, are one clan of divine deities within Scandinavia. these are individuals like Odin and Thor. Then the Vanir, Vanitru, so true is like faith. So Ausatru is faith in the Aesir. Vanitru is faith in the Vanir. Vanir are the gods of the earth. And you have different ones like Freya, and Freya are like usually associated with earthly stuff. Even Siv is like a goddess dealing with grain and wheat and stuff, even though she's married to one of the Ausatru, or the Aesir. I'm sorry, not Ausatru. Aesir, Thor. So Thor's wife, Siv, they're different clans, but they intermarry all the time, which suggests they're almost they're basically the same being, but these are clans. Disatru. Disatru is referring again to like a feminine version of the female deity specifically. Forn Sither, which translates roughly to old custom or old ways. Fjorn Sith, which translates to old custom. Then there is Heathen Sith, which is heathen custom. Then there's Heithi, which is what I was talking about. Heithi, someone who practices Heithi, is a heathen. Then you have Fornsed, Finn Sidu, Erminism, Norse paganism, North heathenry, Germanic paganism, Germanic heathenism, and heathenry. So you have a huge slew of terms, and it kind of comes down to how you want to use them. But yes, you are accurate, Sword Sister. From what I've seen, the term heathen and pagan have both been used in a negative way. But it is what it is. People make it their own. It's going to be different from practitioner to practitioner, so sometimes I wonder why we need so many terms. But that would be another thing to be fun to explore. So hopefully that answers your question, comment, good response. What else we got? Any other open-ended questions? Literally, you can ask about anything or bring up any point you want to bring up in the last 9 minutes. Like I said, I try to keep these videos around an hour, just because I don't expect somebody to sit and watch a previously filmed live for like 2 to 3 hours. Maybe they will. Maybe they'd open it up in the background while they're working on stuff and just listen in. I don't know. I've heard Norse paganism is kind of fizzling out a little. It boomed when Viking shows came out. Have you heard that, Blaze? Just curious. Yes. When the Vikings TV show first came out, and then you had video games like Assassin's Creed Valhalla, a lot of people were like, I'm a Norse pagan, because it's new and it's exciting. Just like back in the 90s when you had the movie The Craft came out, and then you had Practical Magic, everyone was witches. It's not died out completely. You still have plenty of people who are still calling themselves Norse pagan, or one of the many other terms that I'd come up with, but you do see it less because the big boom stopped. One of the problems with being inspired through TV and media is how much TV and media takes creative licenses and changes things. And when people start digging into it, they're like, oh, that wasn't right. So it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. I still have arguments to this day with people not using the proper Vegvisir, and the fact that Vegvisir is not a Viking Age symbol. It's a modern symbol written in a book with Christianity. They don't even realize it's in a book with other Christian symbols, including symbols for Jesus and some of the saints. I got Practical Magic, that movie. I like it, okay? If you're going to attack Practical Magic, you've come to the wrong place. No, welcome any opinion, even an opposing one. I actually really enjoyed Practical Magic. It was good. It was good in how, I don't know, it's one of those classic movies, right? Just one of those things you grew up with, like, oh, cool. Sandra Bullock, Nicole Kidman. I can never remember the actor's name who plays the cop, but he also played in Benny and June as Benny. I'm pretty sure that's the same. No, is that not the same actor? I think I argued with my wife about this recently. I think I was wrong. Cast Practical Magic, and then cast Benny and June. Where is his name? Aidan Quinn. And Aidan Quinn, Benny and June. Okay, that is the same one. Okay. I thought maybe it was another movie I thought he was in and I was wrong on. But anyway, yeah, it's good stuff. Do you know some good books in animism to recommend? I do not off the top of my head. I've heard the term animism, but mostly my interactions and research about animism has been through online stuff. Not even people talking about it. It's just more of a generalized concept, unfortunately. So I can't help you right now. I could do some searching and share what I think could potentially be good sources, but yeah, unfortunately, no. I've watched The Craft. I haven't watched Practical Magic. If you enjoyed The Craft, if you like the type of... So, without ruining it, okay? Practical Magic basically has a family of witches, but they never call themselves witches. Again, you don't need terms, right? So you have a family of individuals that are obviously into magic. Are they witches? Not necessarily, but they make cute little jokes to it, like during Halloween they dress up as witches and stuff. So you have two sisters, and one of their sisters fell in love with someone who doesn't practice, and apparently they were cursed because there's this old curse. One of their ancestors came to this little peninsula island area, whatever. They live off of a coast, and she landed there and she was pregnant, and she was waiting for her man to come, and he never shows up, and she thinks he abandoned her and left her. So she casts a spell that anyone who ever loves one of their she would never love again. So anyone who tries to love any of her ancestors are now cursed. She didn't mean it to go through the generations, but she did with her spell. So when these two sisters, their sister died of a broken heart, they say, because her husband died, had another two sisters, and those are the two main characters, and Sandra Bullock and Nicole Kidman. So they're living with their aunts. They're raised with learning magic and stuff, and one of them wants to live a normal life. The other one kind of goes off and just lives a life of fun doing whatever she wants. But they both know some magic, and magic is, of course, real, and it bridges the gap between realistic magic and Hollywood fantasy magic. So they take some things that are kind of subtle in nature, and they amp them up a little bit. So we're not talking people throwing fireballs and lightning bolts. We're talking about them grinding herbs and doing chants and things happening. So there are some things in the movie that are pretty extreme, like actually physically seeing spirits at one point. But it's kind of like balanced out between practical magic and taking it up a notch. And it's good. It's really good. It's interesting. That doesn't ruin the movie at all, trust me. But if you like magic and stuff, it's a good watch, I think. Sword Sister, did you like it? Nah, I actually like that movie. Oh, okay. I remember it being somewhat accurate. I've watched The Craft. I haven't watched Practical Magic. Oh, wow. I missed comments and then jumped back down. I'm sorry. I was going back up through making sure I got all the comments and stuff. So, interestingly enough, I actually stopped wearing my Mjolnir as much. I started wearing this because of my Icelandic heritage. This wasn't meant to be spiritual. This was meant to be cultural. And because of so many people doing the Norse, heathen, pagan type stuff, I didn't like where a lot of them were taking it, and I didn't want to associate with them. So I stopped wearing this as much. I started putting it on recently. Not as often, but I've been putting it on a little bit more. It's interesting how people can get put off by others and how they do things. I'll check it out. Thanks. Yeah, if you do, let me know. So hopefully I'll do some more lives. My goal here, like I said, is to be more active, whether it is through making videos or doing more lives. I do want to be more active on YouTube. Like I said, my big thing is like talking about this, like sharing ideas and thoughts. And so far, like I said, if people like hearing it, I'll keep making videos. At some point, if I stop getting interaction, period, I would probably just retire my YouTube channel and just leave it up for people who want to find it. But as of right now, y'all keep showing up for lives. You make me feel like you want to hear what I have to say. So here I am, just some random 42-year-old guy who likes researching on his own. So, good times, good times. All right. 59 minutes. I'm going to wrap it up here. Thank you all for hanging out. As always, if you like my content Interact. That's the best way to ask for more, is always to interact. Like, comment, watch old videos, see what you like. Thanks to sharing. Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, Alum, I don't have any good books on animism that I would recommend, but something to keep an eye out for. And if I do see one in the future and I think of it, I'll bring it up. Thanks for the stream. Absolutely. Thanks for watching. I like your channel. I've learned a lot. That's the type of stuff I like to hear. That's my goal, is to share. And sometimes I'll learn too. So if you find something that you have that has different evidence, share it. I'm willing to. I know I don't know everything. I know I'm still constantly learning, but I have picked up a lot of things over the last 30 years, and I want to share a handful of them. And that's, like I said, that's my deep dive. Taking those things I've picked up over the last 30 years and picking out what's hearsay BS, what has a source and origin, and then trying to narrow that down and pick it out. And then I'm repeating some of the things that I've mentioned before with newfound evidence to support it, or untangling it and showing why I untangled it and what the evidence is to untangle it. So there we go. No problems, dude. Cool. Catch you.